Welcome to London. This is me cycling into town again the first time after lockdown. Nice white van, close pass, of course. That's normal. And to be honest, it was all feeling a little bit weird. I hadn't really been on my bike for a long time. A lot of walking, a lot of little local shopping. And you were a bit worried that Frank was talking to me a little bit Mad Max. I'm not taking the piss. This actually was my first ride in. Anyway, this is out in Lewisham. This is proper central London though. So this is Embankment. This is actually a temporary junction that went in at Blackfriars Bridge, and this replaces, but does replicate the way the junction sort of used to work on the other side of the road. But you'll see some hoarding on the left. That's the Tideway Tunnel works. But here you'll see lots of temporary water-filled barriers, the kind of thing we're starting to see pop up across the country. But this is the main east-west cycle route in London, and it's been done with temporary materials for years now. Because this Tideway Tunnel takes, a very long time to build. They are boring miles and miles of infrastructure across London. Now, as you can see, this is heavily used, but it's meaning that we're not, sharing the road with lots of HGVs and quite heavy traffic on this, the embankment route through London, A3020. God, I should have looked that up before I started recording this. Never mind. And you can see it's still got proper signal poles, proper junction. So although there are temporary materials being used here, a real junction has been delivered. And I think that's an important thing to remember given all that we're now seeing. It is a bit awkward junction though, because you have to turn, come across, and then immediately turn again. The old route was just up to the left here, up a different slip road. And then you've got the embankment route itself, lots of lovely, proper big curbs. Nice bi-directional route, still getting three abreast there anyway. Here's another bit of Tideway Tunnel, actually further up on the same route. This is close to the Houses of Parliament. Again, you'll see some temporary barriers here. There's actually one there that can be pulled across, and one there that can be opened up to let them have access to their site. And here you'll see that it gets to a very narrow separation from the traffic using poles and wands. But again, this is something that's been in London for years, successfully working. Now this is the kind of thing that's being used elsewhere, and you can see that there are temporary movable elements here for getting vehicles in and out of the site. So I just thought I'd put these up as a video first on Street Space, just because actually I think it's really important for us to understand that these temporary measures can last years, and if they're maintained in the right way, they can be part of viable major routes. This is the busiest cycling route in London, the East-West Superhighway. And it has seen increases in usage all the way along, even whilst using these temporary measures. So I think it's really important that we do see that these are really important and large-scale measures. But I also just wanted to kind of give you a bit of a talk through here of Parliament Square as well, because actually this shows you the other side of what can happen. So this here on the right was coach parking. It's now car parking, I think, for the Tideway Tunnel workers. That might be slightly questionable and maybe a problem as things start to come back. There's also a police headquarters nearby, and of course Parliament, although Parliament has a massive underground car park, but does also have a lot of bike parking, and all of this cycle facilities nearby, including all of these hire bikes. So they're not undercatered for alternatives to public transport, especially compared to the rest of the country. Now this went in 2016, as I'm sure many of you know, but has been in for a long time. And indeed, you do see quite a lot of people using it even now, at the moment. And you see people wearing pretty ordinary clothes. Frankly, the PPE here is crossing the road. I just thought also a light on the fact that down here, you've actually got a section that has been reworked very recently. So obviously, there was the very sad death of Keith Palmer and the need for enhanced security around Parliament. That meant the gate we just went through. And the extra bollards on the left here. This was done, again, with temporary infrastructure for a very long time, but has now been done with permanent infrastructure. And I think that's the point, is that we can see this kind of pipeline, conveyor belt, of a movement of schemes becoming permanent as we go along. And I think that's important to bear in mind. Here we have the Parliament Square, pretty much roughly as it was. But again, this scheme has varied over the years. If I had my video library in order, I'd be showing you all kinds of different clips of it as it was and as it is, and I might even dig those out just to help describe this if I do a better version of this later. But here we have a junction which has a pretty simple treatment really. There's a two-directional track in the far right corner, there's a two-directional track on this corner. We're in the middle of a gyratory. The wait at this light can be a bit long. It's actually worse coming around the kind of, there's an inner cycle lane on the gyratory. Here we go, here's our green. This is quite high capacity really as junctions go, because it lets us get people across in both directions at once. But you can see there's not really much curb on some of these crossings. This is actually designed so it can be changed in use for ceremonial purposes. And you'll notice that the curbs that are down here are all wonky and all over the place, and that's because they're precast and have been plonked down in place. This bit's a bit better. But it's a shame that that wasn't upgraded when they whacked in the new protection for Parliament. Protection for people in Westminster perhaps a little bit easier than protection for bikes. Controversial comment. You'll see also there was a little white line whacked down here, but actually it's been taken out and put back up to the junction. This was done with a temporary light for a very long time. I'm going to be slightly cheeky and go through on yellow there, but you'll see temporary barriers, and actually I think I made a little mistake here and went through a red light. I really wasn't paying attention. Sorry. But that junction has that problem. Anyway, you do see poles still even on this junction. So this section again has the point where they have used temporary measures in a kind of permanent scheme. So this uses poles that can be removed. So effectively this cycle lane can be completely removed and they can run something like Ride London, the Marathon, Trooping the Colour, all kinds of stuff get run around this area, because of course you're just coming up towards Buckingham Palace. And I'm just thinking about what else there is to talk about here. So yeah, you've got pedestrian crossings on the level, but this is bi-directional. Not only it's a red track in London, lovely red, sort of like the Dutch, but unfortunately it's red because of the palette of materials here. Now we're in the Royal Parks. It says that red is what you use, and so that's what's being used on the road as well. But anyway, I just wanted to say that what we're doing here is we're having a bit of a virtual safari. We are looking at what's happening in London, and I'm just giving a bit of introduction as well, just to start by looking at what's happened already in London. So just to talk about how we've done this, I've gone in, I've filmed this on a GoPro, I've gone home and I've edited it. I'm just recording a quick voiceover with a reasonable microphone I got at home, but it doesn't matter if you can film and you can edit, anyone can do this. And I think that the point that we're hopefully trying to make is that we want to see more of what is going on where you are. The next video I'm going to do will actually be where we're leading up to. So basically this is all coming up to Park Lane. But I think it's very useful just to see a little bit of what's actually out there already as well. And this is the east-west route as it comes past here. We turn round and we come towards Buckingham Palace. But you'll see that there is no curb segregation here. This has all been done with poles, and this has been in place for a very long time. So if you're worried about how is a bi-directional track going to work with just removable infrastructure protecting it from traffic, here is an example that has been in place for a few years now. I think this went in 2017-ish, and actually it works reasonably well. It could work better, but also the way this works means that when now they are regularly closing this area to traffic at weekends, especially in the Mall, this is actually even easier to navigate. You're not trapped behind a curb and you can come out. But you'll notice that the timing on the lights here is pretty good. I'm getting a nice run. I keep reaching a red. Admittedly, I'm pausing a little bit and then I'm able to get going again, so that's pretty damn nice. And here we come up and you'll see the way this kind of relates back into the park. And I think, again, that's quite useful to think about what's possible with temporary infrastructure and how you get across certain barriers that you may have where you live. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're in the southeast of England, have actually seen this lane, but I think it's good to remind yourself of how it's working now in its current configuration. So here it hops off the road and we come into a bi-directional track that is alongside a previous shared route on the right. So on the right that used to be a shared cycle and pedestrian route, and this used to be more of a horse track, and now this has become the cycling route. And actually the horses in theory can really go down on the road, or they can use this. There's kind of a variety of options for them. This does get used for parking at certain times of the year, and as you can see here, it's being used for parking by a vehicle there. And actually there are bits of works going on around it, because it kind of takes forever for Royal Parks to get everything as they wish. They've always got money to invest, I guess. But we're coming up towards Hyde Park Corner. And I think the thing to see here is that you've got a very nice It's quite quiet on this journey, but there's a jump hire bike. I believe Uber have started moving on. There's a Lime. They're surviving a bit better. But also, those schemes are operating in London as well as the normal hire scheme. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting to see the way that London is operating at the moment. I think, this was a nice, quiet, early morning, midweek. So this was me cycling in at 8 a.m, I think it was. It may have been getting towards 9 by the time I got to Park Lane. I ran a little bit later than I wanted to. But you can see that although this is normal rush hour, the rush hour traffic has not yet returned. This was kind of late May that I shot this video. So it's some time ago now. 27th of May it was. But I'll just take a quick look at how this comes into the junction here as we wrap up and get ready for next week. So yeah, here we go. Come through some barriers, a bit of security. And this is just a shared 2 because it's very wide. It's not ideal, and actually this gyratory is huge and busy. And obviously you've got the problem for social distancing that people will build up here in larger numbers. If you're me, it's good to just get a stop and take a photo of an interesting sticker. But yeah, thank you for watching that. And that's just an example as well of what's possible if you just take some video from a camera and then whack over a bit of voiceover afterwards to try and explain what's seen. I think it's a nice way of seeing what's going on. Cheers.